Welcome to our monthly coaching call. And our coaching webinars are to do a couple of things. First of all, the goal of these webinars is to make sure that you keep track of what you want to try and accomplish so that you are using the information that you learned at the Marketing Mastery event and actually applying it on a consistent, regular, and specific basis. And that's really the most valuable thing about these calls. I also want to make sure that you avoid feeling isolated, that you don't feel like you're the only person out there that's really working on building a marketing-driven real estate business. I also want to make sure that you hold yourself accountable so that you're making progress, taking action on a very consistent, regular basis. Finally, I want to give you new ideas and hopefully inspire you to go out there and really live the life of your dreams. So today, I want to start with my book of the month choice. And this month, I'm going to recommend a book that I recommended a couple of years ago, but I still think it's an absolutely fabulous book. And I think for real estate agents, it's an absolutely must read. And the book is called Great by Choice by Jim Collins. So we're going to try the webcam today a little bit more, and if there's a slide I feel like you actually have to see, but I have some notes, and today's coaching call is going to be a little different. Today, I want to talk about how to develop your philosophy of success. And I will tell you that having a philosophy that you live by, that you execute by each and every day, is absolutely critically important. So what I want you to do is think about it, and you might grab a piece of paper and some pen, or open up a Word document and take some notes as we're going along here today. I want you to think about it, and you might start off your notes by writing down this question. What makes life worthwhile? What makes it really work well so that you have a life of value, of influence, of integrity, so that at the end of your life you look back at it and say, gosh, I lived an extraordinary life. What are the key elements that make a life truly worthwhile, that make it work well? Well, if you would have asked me probably up until my late 20s, I would have said, success and a variety of things, there were external values. Then I met a guy named Jim Rohn, and Jim asked me these questions, and he said, Greg, what really determines how your life turns out, whether it works well, is your philosophy. Now, I always thought philosophy was something you studied in school, not something that you actually lived by each day. But he said, Greg, first of all, you are living a philosophy that you bought into. Now, it may have come from your parents and may have been influenced by your friends, but you're living the philosophy that you currently have bought into. And he says, unfortunately, most people don't think about their philosophy, and they don't refine it, and then they just get through life instead of getting from life. And I want to make sure you get the very best from your life. So, first of all, I need to understand that philosophy is what determines how your life turns out. Now, I want to bring this home in a very practical way. See, think about a couple different philosophical approaches to life. One guy says, guys, my philosophy is just to do enough to get by. The guy comes in early, leaves late, takes an extra long lunch, and he says, listen, I'm getting paid a full day's wage for only working half a day. I've got it made. See, now that's one philosophy. Do as little as you possibly can get it by with. But see, the guy doesn't even know he's sowing the seeds of disaster in his life. And that's so important. He thinks he's got it made. He thinks he's pulling one over. But who he's hurting is actually himself. Another philosophy is, I always do more than I get paid for. I always do my very best. I always give a little bit more. I give more than I get paid for, not to express appreciation to the other person, but to invest in my own personal skills, my own personal self-worth, my own mental outlook. And see, that makes a whole different way of looking at things. If you always do more than you get paid for it, if you go the extra mile, if you always do those things that just set you apart, the difference in philosophy is extraordinary. And the impact that it has on your life is so powerful. Now, it's a philosophy. The question is, what are you living by? What's your philosophy? And today I want you to make a conscious effort to make sure that you are deciding what your philosophy of life should be. It's simple. Think about some of the philosophies we have. When I met Jim, I was struggling a little bit financially. I'd bought a real estate office, was sort of in trouble financially. And he asked me, Greg, how much money have you saved up at this point in time? Now, at this point in time, I had not only not saved any money, but I had borrowed money and spent it. I was severely in debt. And he asked me a very interesting question. He said, Greg, who sold you on that plan? Spend a lot more than you make. And I thought, oh, my goodness, he's right. I bought the wrong plan. See, and this is such a simple little thing. It's a refinement of philosophy. He said, Greg, you currently are operating on a philosophy of spend everything you make and then some. He said, Greg, let me change a philosophy. He says, it's a simple little philosophy change. But he said, Greg, learn to live on 70% of what you make. He says, after taxes, make sure you give the government everything they're due. But after taxes, live on 70% of what you take in. And then take 10% and save it for emergencies. 10% of your money, invest it. Put it into a savings account, invest it in real estate, do whatever you want to with it, but watch it carefully and invest. And then give 10% away. Give it to charity, a cause that you care about. And he says, Greg, this will change everything. Now, it's just a different philosophy, but I will tell you the 70-10-10-10 will make a huge difference in how your life turns out. See, when I talk to the teenagers today, I tell them, listen, if you want to be wealthy by 40, just live the 70-10-10 way. Now, people say, well, Greg, teenagers, that's a little young. When should you start teaching this philosophy? See, and I believe the very first dollar a child gets, you should instill in that child, listen, you can't spend the whole dollar. You got to take 10% of it. Give it to somebody that's less fortunate than you are. See, it's when you're young that you start learning these good habits. 10% to invest, 10% for emergencies. People say, well, Greg, it's only a child and it's only $1. That's true. But if you don't teach a child with their very first dollar, this is the way to invest it. This is what you do with your money. When do you think that'll stop? See, if you give a child $1 and say you can spend it all, now, when are they likely to stop that plan? When they're in their teens? Their 20s? 30s? No, they're going to be like me. They're going to say, gosh, oh my goodness, I've got money, I'm going to spend it. And I want you to realize it starts with a child and it starts with $1. So the first time you give your kids $1, and they can actually understand what to do with it, you got to persuade them with every fiber of your being not to spend the whole dollar. Now, I found that children, you learn best by visual. So if you take your 8-year-old, 10-year-old, give them some money, look at their money and say, listen, here's what you need to start doing with it. 70% you can spend. Do whatever you want to it, buy the video games, whatever it is that you want to do, but 10% goes to your long-term investment plan. This is what's going to make you a millionaire. 10% goes to an emergency fund, and 10% goes to help somebody less fortunate than you. And say, just take them to an area of town that's not that great, help them give that 10% away, and say, listen, This is where the people who spend the whole dollar live. And they'll say, I don't want to live here. And I want you to realize it's easy. And now you can instill things. See, and it's just a philosophy. It's just a point of view, but you've got to make a conscious decision. And unfortunately, so many of us go through life and we don't make a conscious decision about the philosophies that we're actually living by, but they're determining our life. So today, I'm going to think about the philosophy you have about business, lead generation. How do you actually do that? Do you do that only when you don't have business? What do you have a philosophy about service? What should you do? What should you do when you have a very difficult client that maybe doesn't deserve great service? Do you give great service anyway, or do you say they're getting exactly what they deserve? See, and I want you to think it through. See, and I don't have all the answers. I don't have a philosophy that I think everybody should adopt. That's not the point of today, but I want you to think about what's your philosophy? What do you believe about it? And ask yourself, is this taking me the way I want to go? In your relationships, with your kids, with your spouse. What's your philosophy about communication? Should I over-communicate, under-communicate? How do I make sure that I'm communicating? How do I make sure I'm meeting the needs of the people that I'm in a relationship with? Am I asking? Am I checking? Am I investing in the things that I need to do to make that relationship strong? See, should you give your spouse 5-10 minutes of undivided attention every single day? I don't know, but think about it. What's the philosophy you're currently operating from? I'm going to ignore them as much as I can, do whatever I want. Think about the things that have this. Your parenting. Now, parenting is one of those incredible challenges. Now, it's not easy. It is incredibly hard to be a good parent. You've got to put time and effort into it, but you've got to decide, what's that worth to me? What's my philosophy of friendship? What kind of a friend am I? See, do you want to be one of those friends that people would call in an emergency? Because they know whether it was midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning, you would come and help them. Or would they say, oh my goodness, you know, this is a friend of mine, but it's 2 o'clock. I wouldn't feel comfortable calling them. See, and these are the things that can make a huge difference. And Jim got me thinking about my philosophy for all kinds of things. He said, Greg, what's your philosophy on forgiveness? I said, well, what do you mean? Who should you forgive? He said, Greg, I believe you should forgive everybody that's ever done you wrong, taken advantage of you physically, mentally. He says, it's not for them, it's for you. He says, if you harbor the resentment, it causes health problems. He says, but you've got to decide what's your philosophy. You've got to decide, is your philosophy to find as much happiness as you can every single day? Or do you want to be sort of frustrated, resentful every day? And he says, this is a philosophical choice. Your philosophy is also truly brought to light by what you do, not what you say. See, and this is one of the interesting things that Jim helped me see. He said, Greg, your philosophy is reflected in what you do every day. It's the impact you're having. It's how you're coming across. And he says, at the end of the day, you got to ask yourself, is this the kind of person I want to be? And so many of us want it to be a little bit different. We say, well, gosh, this is what I think I should be. It's not what I do, but it's what I want to be. So understand that your philosophy is what you're living every day. And your philosophy about wealth, success, happiness is reflected in your current level of wealth, happiness, success, relationships. All of these things are a direct result of your philosophy. And philosophy is fairly simple. Philosophy is basically what you know and how you feel about it, what you believe is actually true. And so the first thing is, I want you to start refining your philosophy, and the first way to refine your philosophy is to get the information. Your philosophy is refined by, first of all, your own experiences. And every human being is unique, and that's why we all have a little bit different philosophies, because we have different experience. It also is refined by what you learn. The people you're around, and by reflecting on your life. And this is so important to really understand. So, first of all, I want you to realize that you've got to get the information. You've got to learn everything there is. You've got to actually go out and think about it. Jim said, Greg, if you want to be wealthy, study wealth. If you want to be happy, study happiness. If you want to learn how to be a great parent, study parenting. He says, if you want to have a great relationship, study relationships. He says, if you really want to have a life of sophistication, culture, influence, every area of your life is a study. And you've got to get the information. Now, he says, the amazing thing is the information is there. And you can go to the library, and a library card is free. It doesn't even cost you money. He says, you can get books, you can read, you can do so many different things. Now, first of all, he said, we learn through our own personal experiences. He said, the problem with our own personal experiences is that our own experiences can take too long. And he says, you've got to be careful. He says, first of all, you want to make sure that you learn from your experiences, and the only way to learn from your own experience is to reflect on your own life. At the end of the day, you've got to ask yourself, did today move me in a direction that I was happy with? Did it take me where I wanted it to go? In relationship to my career, my relationships, my parenting, my leadership, whatever it is. And he says, if you don't think about it, if you just go through the day, and at the end just turn on the TV, watch a little TV, go to bed, and don't think, did this move me the way I want to go? Then you're probably not going to get where you want to go in the long run. And this is so important to remember. You've got to think about your philosophy. He said the other way to learn is through other people's experience. And he says, yeah, you do this by reading, talking to people, both successes and failures. I will tell you, this can make such a huge difference. Jim sold me on reading a book a week. And he said, Greg, if you read a book a week, it'll change your life. Think about the things that are important to you. And now make a list of books in that area and go out there and read them. And if you start reading a book a week, it's like getting an amazing education. And your refinement of information of how you approach things will change dramatically over time. This is so critically important to understand. Now, fortunately, Jim sold me on reading books 30 years ago. And I will tell you, over the last 30 years, I've been pretty good at reading a book a week. And I look back, see, that's 1,500 books over the last 30 years. And I will guarantee you, those books have changed every single aspect of my life. My relationships, my way I look at every single thing, my leadership, my understanding of so many different things. It makes such a huge difference. My question for you is, what are you reading? How is that helping you to refine your philosophy of what you're doing each and every day? So start by making sure you look at your own experiences, but then look at other people's experiences. Then think about the influences. If you read all the great literature on self-development, Think and Grow Rich, How to Win Friends and Influence People, they all talk about developing a mastermind group. A group of people that you can get with and share ideas that will influence you and have an impact, that you can ask for advice. And I want you to realize this is where you can learn from other people's experiences incredibly well. Now, one of the best ways to capture all these experiences is to keep a journal. Now, a journal is a blank book that you're going to use to capture ideas. At the end of the day, ask yourself, is there anything in today that I should think about, that I can learn from? When you read a book, if you run across a great idea, write the great idea down. You'll find that it will make such a huge difference for you. You'll get so much more out of it. If you go to a seminar, you're talking to a friend, and they say something that you find valuable, write it down in your journal. And what I found is that over time, you can capture the good ideas that come your way. Here's what I found: rarely does a good idea interrupt you, and when you get one, you've got to capture it. Otherwise, 6 months later, a couple years later, you say, gosh, I remember I read something, it dealt with this, but I have no idea what it was. See, this will help your memory. It will help so many different areas of your life. If you will just start keeping a journal of the good ideas that come your way. Also, remember that you learn from other people's experience by really listening to them. And here's one of the great things. I have found that incredibly successful people are happy to share. I recommend at least once a month taking a successful person in your office out to lunch, maybe even once a week, but at least once a month. Take a successful person and say, how did you do it? What are you currently doing? Pick their brain. And then listen, take your journal and take notes. This will make such a huge difference for you, because now you're capturing the information that comes your way. Now you're designing your life. You're not living a life by default. Then I want you to think about even taking out a failure. Somebody that's maybe got into your office, seemed like they had it going, had a good family, seemed to do reasonably well before they got into real estate, but then they blew it. And they're now leaving real estate. Take these people out to lunch and say, tell me, how did you blow it? All kinds of reasons to good. What did you do? And take careful notes. Look at what they read. Don't read it. Look at what they did. Don't do those things. And you can learn just as much from failures as successes. I found in our own personal experiences, we actually tend to learn from failures more than successes, because we analyze our failures. We don't analyze our success nearly as much. But it's important to do both so that we can really move forward consistently. Now, I also want you to realize that your philosophy is determined by the people that you spend a significant amount of time with in your life. And this is so important. Every now and then, it's important to sit down and ask yourself, who am I around? Who are the friends I'm with? And just make a list of all the people that you're spending a significant amount of time with. And ask yourself, who am I around, and where have they got me going? What books have they got me reading? What seminars have they got me attending? What concerts are they taking me to? Or do we just get together and get drunk on Friday nights? What is it that we do? And now ask yourself, is that okay with you? Ask yourself, is this the direction I want my life to go? Now, I'm not saying it's not okay, but it's important to ask. It's important to take a few minutes and every now and then say, gosh, is this how I want the next 5, 10 years to unfold? Because what you do, the people you're around, have a huge, huge impact on you. We seem to know this as parents. As parents, we're always careful to tell our kids, who are your friends? Make sure you're hanging around with the right crowd. We understand the power of peer pressure. But now we get adults, we say, well, gosh, I know that John's not the greatest influence on me, but, we like football together. But now we get together, the way John talks, what he does is always negative, and now it has an influence on you. And we say, well, I'm not like him. I can ignore that. No, you can't. And it's important to understand that. We are affected by the people we're around on a consistent basis. Here's what I want you to do. Get around the people that are going to push you, make you grow. One of the great things Jim told me is, Greg, get around a crowd that's going to make you grow, that's going to bring you up. He said, never be the smartest, most successful person in your sphere of influence. He says, in fact, if at all possible, be the least successful person, because the rest of the people will grow you, help you expand, grow. This makes such a huge difference. Get around people that are going to push you, make you better. Now, to do this, there's a couple things you might have to do. What I want you to do is ask, who am I around? Where have they got me going? Is that okay? And as you go through this thought process, you may come to the realization that you need to have some expanded association. There's a friend that every time you're around, they make you feel better. They inspire you. They get you to take action. Now say, gosh, for this person, how can I spend more time with them? How can I expand that association? You may have to go find some new people to put into that category and expand that association. Now, there are some people that you say, oh my goodness, every time I'm with them, I get a little sarcastic. I get a little bit this way, a little bit that way. For them, I maybe need to limit my association. Now, this can be hard. You might even be related to one of these people. But you have to say, listen, the impact they're having is not what I want to have in my life, so I need to limit the association. I can't spend days with them. Maybe I can spend a few hours a week. Maybe instead of spending a few days, it's a few hours a month. Maybe instead of a few hours, it's just 30 minutes. Maybe I can talk to them on the phone. And you have to limit that association. Now, there are some people that I have found that are so toxic, so negative, have such a negative influence in your life, you may come to the conclusion that you have to disassociate them completely. And it's so important that you actually do that when you have a toxic person in your life. You say, well, I really like this part of them. Yes, but in this area, they're having such a negative influence. It's so costly. And I want you to realize, don't ever underestimate the power of influence, because it makes such a huge difference in how your life, your philosophy turns out. In the end, your philosophy determines how you feel about yourself. And what I found is this: your own self-worth is determined by the reflection of your philosophy and what you do on a daily basis. So I want to think about it. Think about a couple simple philosophies. Think about developing a philosophy that says, in everything I do, I am going to do simply the very best that I can. I'm going to work as hard as I can at every aspect of my life. Now, you want to get this straight. Remember that you don't want to let your life become real estate, become work. If you work 24/7, all you're going to have is work. But what you want to do is say, gosh, when I go to work, I'm going to work for X number of hours, and I'm going to do as much as I possibly can in those 8 hours. I'm going to do the very best that I can. I'm not going to let anything slide. And then when I go home, I'm going to be the best parent that I can. I'm going to be the best spouse that I can. I'm going to invest as best that I know how. And I'm going to constantly improve and get better. And if you will make an effort to say, in every single aspect of my life, I'm going to be the best that I possibly can. Now, understand that we're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to slip up. But if you're always doing your best and you say, oh my goodness, in this case, my best was not good enough, but now I can get better. I can read a few more books. I can go get some help. This will make such a huge difference. I think what messes most with people's minds is simply doing less than they can. This undermines self-worth. You go to the office and say, gosh, today I need to call these 4 people and I need to make 4 cold calls. You only call 2 people, make 2 cold calls. Now at the end of the day, you're 4 calls behind, and it just messes with your mind. Your own self-worth, your own self-value, the way you see yourself is undermined. I could have made a difference. I could have earned a little bit more money. I could have made a better impact on my family's life. And now you go home and you say, gosh, I'm a little tired. I could read with my kid. I could go out in the back, play with them, spend some quality time. But it's easier just to say, go watch some TV. Play the video games. And now that messes with your mind. And I want you to realize this is how subtle it is. See, and within a day, it's just, gosh, 5 minutes extra with my kid today doesn't seem to matter. 5 minutes listening to my spouse today doesn't seem to matter. 2 extra cold calls today. Working on my marketing. Sending out an extra 25 brochures. Doesn't seem to matter today. but see 25 brochures every day for the next year. 5 minutes a day with your spouse, 5 minutes a day with your kids. At the end of the year, it's a huge difference. It's 20 minutes of exercise a day. It's eating well. We talked about this in the seminar. The subtlety is that within the day, it doesn't seem to matter. But I need you to understand that every day matters. And again, this is determined by your philosophy. What is mattering to you? And so what I want you to do is really think about your philosophy, what you want to get out of your life, and say, is the philosophy that I'm living, that I'm actually taking action on each and every day, taking me where I want to go? Think about it. All of you are here because you were invited to the Marketing Mastery 3-day seminar. You paid your money, and you probably walked out of there saying, I'm going to go and make some differences. I gave you some specific homework activities to do. The question is, how are you going on them? You know, I'm always amazed. At the end of every seminar, I ask people to write their quantum leap letter. You know, write that one-page letter that outlines, at the end of your quantum leap, here's what my life would be like. Write it as if it was already a reality. I am currently making X number of dollars. I'm living here. I'm doing this. This is what I'm doing with my family. This is the vacations I'm going on. Write it as if it was already a present reality. And so many people say, Greg, I'm going to give you my letter. And I ask you, just email it. Email it to me so I know you're taking action. And here's what I found. About 10% of the people do. And those are the 10% that make huge strides in their productivity, in their progress. And a year later, they write me another letter saying, Greg, you cannot believe the last year has been extraordinary. I've already accomplished everything on my quantum leap letter and then so much more. See, I've always wondered, gosh, why is it so few are willing to do something so simple? Writing a quantum leap letter is not hard. I'm sure every one of you could do it. Most people tell me, yes, I feel like I should do it. And they just don't. We talked about the formula to mess up everything. Think about the things you could do, should do, just don't do them. See, this is a philosophy. It's a way of looking at life. Next, have you completed your values clarification worksheet? And then, have you gone through and made the list of what are the things I need to do to live those values, to make them come out? Next, have you picked your niche? Have you selected the segment of the marketplace that you know, this is what I want to do, and it's a reflection of my values, because that makes such a huge difference. Now, have you reviewed the notes from the seminar? Gone through the booklet, the notes, and made a list of the things that are most important to you? And what I want you to do is realize you can't do it all at once, so go through the notes and say, okay, here's the action steps that I need to take. Here are the areas I need to work on, some online advertising. I need to collect a niche. And just go through and make a list of all the things you want to do and then prioritize them. Say, this is number one. I need to get my niche selected, number one, because without that, I can't drive a marketing message. Then I can't create my strategic brand advantage. So I need to select my niche. Now I need to have my strategic brand advantage. Now I need to have my look, my feel, my marketing in place. Now I need to get some online advertising going. I need to have my special reports ready to send out. I need to create a landing page. And now just think about what are the most important things for you to do. Maybe it's starting with your social media marketing. It's posting, saying, you know, I need to post every day in a reflection that's part of my core values. And now just start creating that action plan. And that will make such a huge difference for you. What I found is that our philosophy has such a huge impact in what we're doing. Now, when I very first heard that, I thought, I don't know if that's true, but I want you to realize it really is true. It has such a huge impact for you. Today, I want you to make sure you're living a philosophy that will take you where you want to go. So just take a look at the last year. Ask yourself, if you repeated the last year every year for the next 20 years, would it get you where you wanted to go? If not, what are you going to do differently? What are you changes you're going to make starting today to get you where you want to go? I will tell you, this makes such a huge difference. It's not hard. It takes a little bit of effort, and it may feel uncomfortable. It may make you confront some issues that you would prefer not to. But that's the only time you can make progress. See, here in America, it's so easy to do well. I mean, if you can't do well here, where are you going to go? See, I want you to understand it is easy. Now, here's the most amazing thing about this. It's easy not to do. The things I've talked about today, none of them are hard, none of them are difficult, but every one of them is easy not to do. It's easy not to keep a journal. It's easy not to read a book a week. It's easy not to really think about what's important to you. It's easy not to think about your quantum leap letter. So what I found is this. Success is not hard. It's actually fairly easy. It's finding things that you can do, but then it's working hard at it. And that's my caveat. See, if you look at what you can do and then work hard at it, you will have extraordinary success. It's that simple. And so today, I want you to make sure that you're taking those action steps. Now, I know today's call has a little bit different. Normally, it's a little bit more, here's the specific steps of marketing and action. But today, I just felt like it was important to take a few minutes and challenge you to make sure that you're living by your philosophy and make sure that you're refining it so that it's taking you exactly where you want to go. So that now, 5-10 years from now, you can look back and say, oh my goodness, I've had an extraordinary life. Look at the last 5-10 years. It has been such a great run. See, we can live an extraordinary life, and I want you to know that lifestyle, living an extraordinary life doesn't take a lot of money. People say, well, Greg, when is enough enough? And I will tell you, it's not an amount. If you are making $50,000 a year in real estate and working as hard as you can, doing the best that you possibly can, giving every bit of your energy, your best being to that, that's great. On the other hand, if you could make $500,000 a year in real estate and you're earning 50, then I think you're selling yourself short. It's not what you make. It's doing the best that you can. It's having a philosophy that will get you where you want to go, living an extraordinary life. And you can get information on living an extraordinary life, how to influence your family, the people that are important to you, for a few dollars at the library. I want you to make the commitment that you are going to grow. I will tell you, when Jim turned me on to the whole concept of personal development, it changed my life. And I have never been the same again. Now, I still have a long ways to go. I still need to work in certain areas. I need to improve my relationships with my kids. I need to do a lot of things. But I will tell you, I've come a long way, and I want to sell this, and I want to pass it on. Jim shared it with me. I want to share it with you because I know it can change your life in a significant way. Now, what I would like to do is open it up to a few minutes of questions. If you can go to the control panel, and if you have any questions, I would be happy to do this. All right. So thank you, Tanya. I appreciate your comment about this being the best webinar ever. That does make me, but I'm open up to any questions, and it can be about the subject we've talked about today, about anything that you have in relationship to your marketing. I really want to make this a work session, so anything I can do, please feel free to type in your questions there, and don't all type in at once. So first of all, was this valuable? So you can give me some feedback on this just by raising your hand on the control panel. I have put them all down. So was this valuable? I would greatly appreciate knowing that. All right, I see a few people. And then I'd also love to know, what can we cover in future sessions? And I'd love it if you drop me an email. Here's some things I'd love you to cover in your monthly coaching calls. My email is Greg, G-R-E-G, period, Herder, H-E-R-D-E-R, at hobbsherder.com, HOBBSHERDER.com. Are the books you read motivational? And the books I read are structured depending upon what I'm trying to improve right now. So usually at the beginning of the year, or sometimes at the end of the year, I say, okay, in the year ahead, here's some things I really want to improve, whether it's relationships, whether it's leadership, whether it's marketing. And now I'll say, okay, I want to read X number of books in this category and X number of books in this category. So I try and read books that are going to help me accomplish specific things. I don't read just what I call pure motivation books unless I'm trying to figure out how do I get more motivated. Now, I'm pretty motivated, so I don't feel like I need a lot of those types of things. I think earlier on, 20, 30 years ago, I read a lot more motivational books. Today, I'm using books on specific subjects, whether it's investing. Right now, I'm getting ready to do a leadership seminar, and for the last few months, I've been just immersing myself in leadership books. Probably had an impact on helping me decide what to do in this particular webinar. So I try and make sure that I'm reading them in a category. When I was really working on improving my parenting skills, I read a lot of parenting books. So I try and break it down and say, what are the books that I read that can really have an influence in the subject area that I'm working on? Is there a replay of this webinar? And I believe we're trying to record it. I just don't know for sure. The last time we had a little technical problem, so there wasn't a replay of it. But we will try and put it up and get it up on YouTube. The next question is, what happens when the time for personal development gets in the way of life, family, etc.? And that's a great question. And so what you have to do is say, what are my priorities? And then put them into sort of a category. And what I found is that if you go to your family and say, listen, I'm going to give you X time, but I'm going to also take X time for my own personal development. And I found if you include them, they are usually incredibly supportive because they can see you change and grow. Rarely have I found that personal development really takes time out of our life. Now, it's one of those weird things that until you experience, it's hard to quite understand, because we always seem to have so much to do that we say, well, gosh, I don't have time to work on the systems of my life, the things that will make it better, be more efficient. But as soon as you go to work on them, you do get more efficiency. Think about it this way. We all have 24 hours a day. You have 24 hours, I have 24 hours. If we show up midnight, neither of us are going to get an extra even minute. We all have to make decisions, how am I going to use that day? And every day we have to invest it. And it's truly a miracle once we really understand that. And here's one of the interesting things. Think about it this way. Jim said, Greg, look at rich, successful people. They have the exact same amount of time each and every day that you do. People that have accomplished amazing things. They have the same amount of time. It's what we put into the time, and we have to consciously say, where am I going to invest that? And I found that if you will just even start with 15 minutes a day on your own personal development, 15 minutes writing in your journal, reflecting about the day, it will make such a huge difference. I would take 15 minutes, even if you have to take it out of your sleep time, to start your personal development path that way. The question is now, what do I do? How do I start? What are some activities that I should be doing while you're developing my marketing package? So a couple of things. For those of you that were working on your marketing package, the most important thing to work on is getting your database in shape, getting your CRM set up so that now when you have your marketing done, you have your past clients, your sphere of influence, everything all ready to go, your farm area all set up so that now you can start executing those incredibly well. learn your CRM so that now you can make sure that you have everything in place. Get all the letters set up, get the listing service plan in place, and you can start using that instantly. There are some things, again, you should start using, today. Every time you take a listing, start the listing service plan, use the buyer's questionnaires, use those things that are instantly available to you, and then we'll go to work on your database, make sure it's ready to go so that by the time your marketing is ready, you can hit the ground running without ever missing a beat. The next question is sort of a question, sort of a comment. All right, and I appreciate your comment, and I am so glad that you are reading a book a week. That